Welcome to VPG's Virtual Water Cooler Chat podcast, a platform that celebrates the rich tapestry of professional diversity, with a particular emphasis on empowering women. We aim to foster diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, DEIA, for all, while recognizing and championing the achievements of everyone as a central pillar of our journey. In our conversations, we explore a wide spectrum of backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives, creating a vibrant mosaic that enriches our collective understanding and strengthens our commitment to diversity and empowerment. Today's episode of Virtual Water Cooler Chat features Camelia Jelani as a guest interviewer with our guest, Ellyar Barazesh. Camelia is a litigation assistant and social media specialist at VPG during her gap year before starting law school in 2025. Ellyar Y. Barazesh is a senior associate in the intellectual property group at Baker Botts, residing in the Austin, Texas office. Ellyar's practice focuses on patent prosecution and counseling post-grant proceedings before the Patent Trial and Appeal Board, PTAB, and patent litigation. He has significant experience working with clients in a wide range of technology areas, including computer hardware and software, control systems, artificial intelligence, networking technologies, location tracking systems, video and image processing, semiconductor devices, data encryption, graphical user interfaces, and medical devices. Prior to joining the team, Ellyar was a Senior Patent Counsel at Unified Patents, LLC. There, he focused on PTAB proceedings, reexaminations before the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, USPTO, and international opposition proceedings. He has also served as a patent examiner at the USPTO, examining patent applications related to video compression and imaging. Ellyar earned his Bachelor of Electrical Engineering from the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities. During his undergraduate studies, he worked at a multinational engineering company researching optical systems and is a co-inventor on a U.S. patent related to his research. Ellyar earned his J.D. from Georgetown University Law Center, where he received the Leon Robin Patent Award for achieving the highest grade in patent law courses of his graduating class, and served as a member of the tax lawyer. Let's get started.
Welcome, Ellyar. My name is Camelia Jelani, and welcome to the Virtual Water Cooler Chat. I'm a litigation assistant and social media specialist here at Virtual Patent Gateway. And today we have Ellyar Barazesh here to chat with us about his career as a patent lawyer. Welcome, Ellyar. Could you tell us a little bit about how you know Ashley?
Yeah, thanks, Camelia, and thanks, Ashley. Thanks to both of you for having me. I know Ashley from working with her at Unified Patents. So one of my prior jobs was patent attorney at Unified, and Ashley was the paralegal who I worked with on almost all my cases. So worked with her very closely during that time. That's
amazing. I wanted to start us off by maybe talking about your formative years and see if there was anything you can talk about that kind of led you into your career as a patent lawyer.
Sure. So it started pretty early. I worked at 3M during undergrad and did a lot of research. I was in an optical systems lab, so playing around with optical systems, helping out a senior scientist there. And throughout that experience, we were filing patent applications, and I just helped out, gathering materials for that. And that kind of was the first experience I had with patent law. And that just piqued my interest and made me want to explore the career further. So that's what got things started and led me to get to where I am today.
That's amazing. I was also wondering about how you think your background in engineering influenced your career in patent law and how you think it kind of helped and made you different in a way. Because I know a lot of undergrads don't necessarily major in engineering and then go and end up in law school. So if you could talk about how, that made you unique.
Yeah, so I did electrical engineering for my undergrad degree. And I think it was, a combination of that and then just getting kind of early exposure to patent law at the job I was working at, which made me aware of the career path because I wasn't really that aware of it during undergrad. And I feel like sometimes when you're studying engineering at university, it's not always a career option that you might know of. So studying electrical engineering has a lot of broad applicability. So I do a lot of software cases and I kind of just work on all sorts of technologies, and it just provides a good background for all those different areas. Yeah, I think it was a combination of that and the work experience that kind of led me on my journey and helped provide that pathway.
You mentioned some of the areas you work in. I was wondering how you approach staying updated on the latest advancements in such a diverse field to better serve your clients.
In terms of keeping up, I work with a lot of different clients, and they're usually, they're at the cutting edge of technologies. So just through conversations with them, conversations with the engineers, you generally pick up on what is the cutting edge advancements in particular technical fields. Apart from that, I try to keep up with publications in each area, just general technology news and seeing, what's kind of the hot area. I've been to a decent number of startup events in the Austin area. So I'm based in Austin, Texas. And that has been a really neat experience because you're talking to people who are starting brand new companies. They have a neat idea, interesting projects that they're working on. And that's also a good way to keep involved with the technical community and see kind of where people are heading and what people are doing in different fields. Right. So I'd say that's probably what I tend to do.
Cool. Do you have a favorite area that you like working in specifically?
I like everything. I mean, a big area, feel like you see a lot of this, but AI is just exploding at the moment. So that's a pretty big part of my practice in terms of the prosecution and counseling side. A lot of machine learning and AI-based applications. I really like signal processing as well. That's what I had a large deal of experience in. I worked at the Patent Office, so that's what I examined when I was there, applications based on signal processing and image coding. So I think those are probably the two areas, but I do semiconductor work, automotive application work. So it's kind of all across the board and it's all kind of uniquely interesting.
You mentioned AI, and that's a topic that I also find really interesting. Could you talk a little bit more maybe about the future implications of AI in patent law and what your take on it is, if you think it's positive or negative?
Yeah, I mean, I think just in terms of the technology itself, it's evolving so much. You think about the last kind of few years, just how much it's taken off and there are so many innovations happening in that space. So, I mean, it's great working with all these different companies who are kind of harnessing its power in many different ways, different fields, like fields you wouldn't even expect. They're doing a lot of research into how they can use AI and what kind of unexpected results they can get. And how that helps them innovate. I think for the practice of law, it's also a pretty powerful tool if it's used the right way. You've probably seen some stories of attorneys using it to find different cases and not really doing their diligence, and they're citing to cases that don't exist that have been kind of generated from asking AI tools questions about, cases in a particular area. That's not the right way to use it, but there are ways to kind of transform certain tasks into that may be time consuming in the past, using AI tool to just speed things up and get results you want faster, which is really helpful. And, I think it's going to keep changing. So we'll see what type of impact it has, if it kind of, has a really big impact on patent prosecution, which I think it will, and what that impact will be at a broad scale, but I think it's a very helpful tool. So I'm definitely trying to incorporate it into my practice at the firm, and it's been a great experience so far.
Yeah, that's really cool. I've also heard of different instances of like law professors using it in their classes when it comes to specific classes like patent law. What do you think of that? Do you think it would help students more using AI in a meaningful way, or do you think it would hurt their education?
I think it can help. I mean, I kind of compare it to when I was in law school and also undergrad. Like, you kind of, if you didn't really understand something, you'd Google it, or that's what I do. Or look at Wikipedia just for a starting point. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of a similar type of tool, a lot more powerful, but it's a similar process. I think what could be problematic is if people overly rely on it. So they're not really absorbing like the actual like meaning of the content they're studying, and it just turns into something where you don't really know what you're doing, but you're just typing in a question into AI and it's spitting something out, and you just take it for granted that that's the right answer. Then you're not really learning the content itself. I think that would be problematic, but as a research tool, I think it's great, and it's just something that people should double check the answers that it provides and make sure they're understanding the content itself.
For sure. I wanted to steer the conversation into more about your work now. Is there any particularly challenging case that you've worked on in the past or recently that you've had to navigate through to achieve a favorable outcome for your client?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, every case is challenging. It has its unique challenges. I mean, there's a few in particular that, they're big cases. They have a lot of different moving parts. I think a big factor in those cases is just being organized, keeping everyone updated with what's going on, managing expectations, and also just, putting in the work and making sure you're doing work at a high level that is in line with the expectations that, your internal clients, so the people you're working with, the partners you're working with, other members of the team, and then obviously the external client, like, the companies that we're serving. And I think when things get overwhelming and things get really busy, it's just leaning on your team members for support, asking questions, getting just the support you need. And I've been lucky that at the current firm I'm at, and also really all of my prior positions, I've been in a place that has a good support structure, I have people there who I can turn to and ask questions and also just bounce ideas off. So I think those are all kind of the main ways that I've navigated those type of situations and overcome obstacles.
Yeah, that's awesome. If you could explain like 3 personality traits that you think every patent lawyer should have, or what you think is really important when it comes to your field.
Sure. It's an interesting question. I would say being inquisitive. So asking questions, that plays into prosecution work where you're writing a patent application, you're talking to inventors. You need to kind of flesh out the ideas, ask questions of them, figure out all the different angles related to their invention and how the invention works, and get a full understanding. It's also really a neat process to ask them about where they see the field and their invention kind of being positioned in the next 5 years or 10 years. What are the innovations that they think would come after this initial invention they have, and where could things go? So I think, being inquisitive, asking questions, being precise is a really valuable tool. Checking work, checking the details, that can differentiate you because you'll spot issues. There have been a lot of times in my career where I've managed to spot things that maybe didn't seem totally right, and then it ends up being a pretty valuable point to have brought up, and it can really help your client and help the case you're working on move forward. So I think that's a really important trait to have as well. So 3 traits. So the last one I would say is just being kind, being nice, not only patent law and being a patent attorney, but just in any field, being a nice person and trying, even when things get stressful, trying to just make connections with the team you're working on, getting to know people outside of work, especially in patent law and kind of the legal field in general. If you're putting in a decent number of hours at work, it's a lot easier to do that if you like the people you work with and the environment is good. So that's been something that I've always tried to accomplish, and just try to be nice and try to just talk to people, get to know people, and just be open if people have questions, and also create a good environment of work, because I think that's really important.
For sure. How do you manage, stress in your work environment? If you could talk a little bit about that, and I guess company culture as well. What's important about it and what you think about stress management?
Yeah, my current position, I think it's really important just to try to set aside some time for family. I have 2 small kids, and that's my way of unplugging, is just trying to spend as much time with them that I can. Obviously, working at a big law firm is a commitment, but being intentional to try to be home for dinner, try to have some time with them, that's a good way for me to recharge. Spend time with my wife as well. That's just the way that I try to balance things and stay well balanced across the board. And then being organized and trying to look at your week ahead and kind of schedule out, what needs to be done, what are the things I need to complete each day. That can also help, just knowing everything that you have to accomplish. And obviously things come up every day, but at least having some sort of roadmap for the week really helps me. And then I think exercise and trying to eat well is also good. And things I'm still working on as well. Like all of these things I'm still working on, but I think that combination for me is the right approach for me to do. And I think it could be applicable to many people too.
Cool. Mentorship can play a significant role in professional growth. I was wondering if you had any experience with a certain mentor that, made an impact on your development as a patent lawyer.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been very lucky to have a few different mentors throughout my career, people that I can talk to about all sorts of things. I think from my time at Unified, obviously Jonathan Stroud is someone I consider a mentor. Also Roshan Mansinghani, I talk to him monthly just to catch up and kind of update about, what's going on at work and what's going on in personal lives. And that's been really helpful. And, it's just great to keep those contacts and those people in your life, even when you move on to different positions, who can, help you when you have questions and just bounce ideas off of. And it's really, really valuable. So yeah, mentorship has been a big part of my career. And I try to pay it forward when I can. I've been doing a decent amount of recruiting at my current firm. Yeah, I definitely try to let people know that if they ever have any questions or they ever want to, talk about anything, my door's always open. People can call me, email. I just love being able to help people in the same way that I've been helped throughout my career.
That's amazing. I love the idea of paying it forward. Do you enjoy that side of it too, kind of taking in younger lawyers and teaching them?
Yeah, it's great because it reminds you of kind of where you were at and how far, really just how many years it's been, which is really kind of depressing, but just it makes you realize that there are a lot of really interesting people coming into the field, and it's helpful to kind of give them some of the guidance and tell them about some of the lessons that you've learned as your career has progressed. And I really do enjoy doing that a lot.
Cool. I wanted to gear this conversation next towards DEIA, see what your thoughts were and how it plays a role in the legal profession, particularly in the realm of intellectual property.
I think it's really important. I think we need more representation from across the board. It's a very white male dominated area. The entire legal profession is, honestly, but patent law in particular, there is work being done. And there is progress being made, but there's a lot of room for more progress. And it's something that I think every law firm, every company should be addressing and should be taking steps to advance as much as they can. I think a big part of it is just getting people aware of patent law in undergrad and even earlier. I mean, in high school, and also kind of for the legal profession as a whole, doing the same. One thing I've found pretty helpful is the street law program. I've been a part of that at Baker Botts this past spring, and it was just a great experience. I mean, we basically had a lesson plan. We go to a local high school and teach them over in a class session about a particular legal area. And then they came to the office and performed a mock negotiation. We had a contracts-based scenario. And that was really interesting. I mean, and it's one of those things where you have like a lot of hope in the future. It's very inspiring. So that was a really neat experience. And the founder of Street Law came to our firm, and he was involved in the entire experience here. And just talking to him about, how many years he's been trying to do this, and just been, started this program years ago. And it's just so impressive and inspiring when you see the work that he's put in, and then you see the class taking on the concepts, getting really passionate about the subject matter. And then, at the end of it, they've done a great job and they can get experience in this area. And maybe it makes them think about becoming an attorney. Maybe it makes them think about going to law school. Maybe it makes them think about becoming a paralegal, whatever it is, but just gives them the option if they want to pursue that area of study. How
old were the kids? They were high schoolers?
They were in high school. So it was debate and speech class.
Okay.
And it was across grades. So I think it was like sophomores, juniors, and seniors, kind of a spread. So obviously, a few of them were graduating and starting that process of figuring out what they want to do in their future. So it was a really good time.
So you and other employees went there and taught them like lesson plans?
That's right. So it was myself and then a couple of other attorneys and support staff from the Austin office. And we had a lesson plan put together by Street Law that was a contracts-based lessons plans. Basically just go over the basics of contract law. So we went to the school and taught that lesson. And then a couple of weeks later, they came to the Austin office and we hosted them for a day, and they engaged in this mock negotiation. So they were basically in pairs and each on a different side, and they had to come to an agreement and present their agreed upon contract. And it was really neat. I mean, you just got to see all these really creative ways that they were approaching the negotiation and solving problems. And as I said before, very inspiring to be like, okay, I think, hopefully we're going to be all right in the future. We're really good.
That's amazing. I wanted to kind of round this out by asking if you had any advice for future attorneys. I know that kind of plays into what we've been talking about the high schoolers, but yeah, any advice you have for aspiring attorneys within patent law and just law in general?
I would say, I think it's applicable to both law in general and patent attorneys, just getting as much experience as you can early on in your career, taking on different projects. A lot of younger attorneys, they might kind of feel one way or another about patent litigation versus patent prosecution, but I think both are really helpful as a young attorney to get experience in the patent field. So whether you want to do one or the other as your long-term focus, just getting the experience in both is very valuable. So just trying to get as much experience as you can early on, and then figuring out kind of the specifics as your career progresses. And also, I would say, just to keep in perspective, the careers aren't always linear. My thought in law school was, okay, I go to a law firm, stay there for 8 years, figure out if you make partner or not. And then if you don't, go in-house, or even if you do make partner, stay at the firm. That is just not always some people that happens. A lot of people that doesn't happen. I mean, I changed firms a couple of times, worked at Unified for almost 3 years, came back to a firm. So, just things happen in life, paths change, people get really good opportunities that they're not expecting. And I think just being open to those opportunities and not set on one specific timeline of how you might think that things have to be, and just having that openness can be really helpful, because then as your career goes one way or another, you can reflect and say, you've had a really interesting ride, you have a unique background, and then that can be really helpful in the future.
Amazing advice. Well, thank you so much, Ellyar, for joining us today. I had a great time chatting with you.
Yeah, great talking with you, and thanks for having me. Appreciate it.